Okay, so I was gonna make like a part two to the video I did last night, but you know, people generally watch one thing, form their opinions, and don't watch the sequel. So to avoid that, I'm gonna just put something clickbaity on here again. For one reason, I don't feel bad doing this is one because last night when I made that video, I've already kind of covered that info before. I've already talked about it before on the channel. I made two videos that you should be watching about that. One is when to machine your block, and two is when to rebuild your head. And honestly, this is shit that any engine builder, any real engine builder knows. But you know, you have a whole bunch of guys who come in here and say, this is what you have to do. And those are people who don't really build engines, that don't really know shit. They're, you know, like I said, like basic bitches when it comes to the car world. And the car world is full of these kind of fucking people on here, man. And I understand the fact that, you know, that not everybody knows everything, especially if it's not your field of work. But this is when, you know, the difference is like the people who are out here, they're legit trying to understand everything and trying to understand the reasons why, versus people who are just regurgitating shit that they've heard without knowing the reasons behind it. All right. When you go to do an engine build with a shop, 9 out of 10 times that shop is going to push you to do bore and hone. Why? Not because you need it, but just because the fact it gives them a peace of fucking mind. It lowers the chances of having any kind of mistake and rework for them. And, you know, and that's something you don't want. Plus, it costs them zero time and zero money for you to do it, because 9 out of 10 times they don't have their own machine equipment to do this. They're going to send you to a machine shop. Alright, so it costs you a fuck ton of extra money, it costs them nothing, but gives them better chances of a good result. But if you do your due diligence and you do your work properly, all you gotta do is measure out everything and the shit to find out that the thing is fucking fine. And even if you do have imperfections in your cylinders, a lot of times those imperfections aren't going to cost you, you know, the kind of problems that you think you are. Let's just say like this: I've done more engines than I can fucking count for rebuilds now, and I've done several fucking ones that are on boost, making high horsepower, and never once have I sent one of those blocks to a machine shop. If I need to send a block to a machine shop, if I feel it's that bad, it has to go to a machine shop. I chuck that fucking block, and I get another $50 engine. At the end of the day, you know, even buying another $50 engine is way less than going to a machine shop. Let's throw in a hypothetical, right, that you fuck up your crank because you spun a rod bearing or whatever. Then you buy another crank for $80, and you chuck out the old one. And even a lot of times, as long as you don't fucking spin it to where it's gonna fucking sling off the crank, your rod is most likely reusable unless you can see like obvious warp damage to the fucking to the journal. But a lot of times it'll just, you know, scratch it up and it'll still be reusable. If it's not reusable, then you fucking, you know, that's cheap and easy to replace. And even the pistons, like let's say, and this is a lot of you guys are automatically assuming that when you buy parts you have to buy aftermarket. You don't have to. You can buy a set of used pistons to replace it for nothing. And so at the end of the day, even if you have to replace your crank and all that shit, then you're still spending less money for a rebuild than you are for a fucking an import engine. And on top of that too, if you go out and buy yourself like a $300 engine replacement, you don't know the history on that shit. You don't know if it's going to be good when you run it or if it's going to blow up soon. And I mean, yeah, sometimes you get lucky and it'll be completely fine, but then sometimes you're not lucky and then you just wasted whatever much money you spent on that shit and the time to put it in your car when you could have done your rebuild from the beginning and has 0 miles on your shit. All right. And I guess the clickbait thing I'll talk about it now real quick is you know, like using a cut crank. This is something that I've heard for a long time. You know, you can't use a cut crank, it's a piece of shit. You know, you take away the strength of the crankshaft and all that bullshit. Well, Honda crankshafts, you know, stock ones would go up to like 1,000 horsepower, right? So for one, I mean, even if you were to dampen that power threshold a little bit, like, well, how much power are you seriously planning on making? So yeah, you don't need to toss out a crank. I mean, my problem with tossing out cranks and shit is not because I wouldn't use a cut crank, because I have used a cut crank successfully before. But it's just because of the fact that it's extremely hard to find a machine shop that'll cut your fucking Honda crank, you know? And at the end of the day, it's going to cost close to what it is to buy a new one. Like, I did that one time I had my shit cut. The guy cut it for me, and he only charged me like $45. So I saved like $35 based on my normal buy price. So that was great. But, well, for whatever reason, I guess he just thought there wasn't enough money involved in it or whatnot. He just didn't feel like cutting any more Honda cranks. He was just like, nah, man, that was a one-time thing. I'm not going to do it again. I was like, fine, whatever, it's cool. Okay, so there's that. There's and then like people are saying, "Oh, the cut cranks, blah blah blah." It's all that bullshit. Like, why the fuck do you think Honda makes different size bearings? Why the fuck do you think Honda makes oversized bearings? Why do you think ACL, Kings Racing, and all these other companies make oversized bearings for the cranks? Because it's anticipated that over time you'll have wear, and you might need to fucking go over. They make fucking larger bearings for this reason. So if that's the case, then why is that? It's impossible to use a cut crank. It's a bad idea. So why the fuck would these companies waste their time and on research and development, making bigger shit for no one to ever buy it? All right. And another thing too, like why the fuck do you think that they sell shit in standard size again for rebuild kits if you're never gonna fucking use a stock bore every time you're gonna rebuild? That's nonsense. If you've ever been to a fucking like if you've ever worked at a dealership and you've worked at a dealership that fucking that rebuilds engines, your service manager's not gonna tell you you got to pull that engine block out and send it out to get re fucking bored and all that shit. On every single time around. That's, why? Because that's time. And time is fucking money at a business like that. So what they're going to do is they're going to look at it, inspect it, and they're just going to re-hone and go if it's not fucked up. And I've known because I've taken part in fucking dealership rebuilds, So for the guys out here telling me that you have to send it to a machine shop every time, well, you're fucking nuts, because I've never sent my shit to a machine shop, not one fucking time. And I got plenty of engines out there that are running long term, no problem. As a matter of fact, the only engine I've ever sent out, was the one I just sent to CSS, and they're doing the work, they're covering it for free, which is why I agreed to it. If not, I'd have been like, nah, I'm not cutting over, because that's money that I don't need to spend. All right, guys. So If you are new to the channel and you're watching this for the first time, like, I do give in-depth reasons. If you just go back and watch those fucking videos, not right now. If you're watching it within the first day or two of me uploading this by chance, you're not going to see the tags in it most likely. But later on in the next 24 hours, so if it's more than a day old, this video, then you're going to see the tags at the end of the video about, when the machine your block and your head, and you can go check that shit out. And I give a more in-depth reason behind both of those things for why you need to do it and when you need to do it and all that bullshit. All right, though, I don't even know if I want to thank anybody for watching this, because this might want to be one of those things that a lot of people come out and try and challenge me on this, because I aggravate me and fill up my comments with a bunch of stupid people. All right, but for those of you guys that are watching and getting some out of this, thank you for spending the time, and leave a thumbs up if you don't mind. And peace. Thanks for watching.